Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, our Let's Play series against Lodric. It is April 21st of 1942, and over the last couple of days we've largely been observing don't know that I'd call it a ceasefire, because we have had some pretty important events occur, but at least a reduction in operations agreement. We have engaged some Japanese ships in the South Pacific, as well as we have torpedoed a Japanese carrier off Singapore. So we've seen some activity in the last week or so, but we are in the process of sort of a restaging of forces that has been tentatively agreed upon as Lodric has taken this series over. I believe that agreement will expire on April 25th, so we should see things pick up from an op tempo perspective in the coming days, and we are beginning to see some new activity that I think Lodric may have had some influence over. So, you know, he hasn't been playing that long. A lot of what we've been seeing so far has been the handiwork of his predecessor, Lieutenant Rainbow Slash, and so now that he's been in charge for a little bit longer, we're starting to see some of his handiwork. You can see here we have a hit but no explosion on an AMC. That seems like a waste of a torpedo by the U.S. submarine Seal off the west coast of New Britain. We're into the day phase. Meanwhile, the Japanese submarine I-17 is attacking a light merchant ship, an AKL of ours, so a merchant light, the Nanchang off the tip of India, it looks like. Must be attacking on the surface because we've got a lot of gunfire going on here as well. Some ship being penetrated. This AKL's probably going under. I think this guy's just carrying cargo, but I'm not 100% sure. Thanks for the resub, Stein. Good to see you again. I was feeling a little under the weather, but I'm feeling better now. So it looks like 11 shell hits. Didn't look like any torpedoes hit. I don't even know if he fired any. So that was just like a straight up deck gun attack. The Nanchang does sink, so we do lose a merchant ship, but it's a light one. It's not worth too much. All right. So we're in the recon phase of the AM air operation phase. We've got some Japanese, I guess I call them nuisance attacks coming out of Singapore with some bombers heading near Padang. You could also call them training missions, since they probably are being undertaken by light or rookie crews to give them some additional experience in combat before they go up against the first team. Something else just sank. We heard the sound of the gurgling and the humans in the water screaming. Not sure what exactly. I don't think it told us. LT. I can't scroll up. It keeps scrolling down on me. Do you hear Jaws music? Well, that's kind of the indicator. It's like, if this just starts making, you know, noises of men in the water, then bad things are happening. Or good things, depending on your perspective. It does tell me what ship it is, but I can't. I guess it was one of ours. I can't hover over it long enough to see. Because every time a new, like, item loads in there, it drops me down. Maybe it'll tell us on the turn. All right, so we're into the turn. Let's take a look at ship sunk this turn. So it was PT boat TM4. Looks like that sank. And then we've also got the Nanchang, the light merchant ship here. She was a ship of 1,700 tons. Victory value of 2. And she was lost off the southern tip of India. I'm not sure if she was part of a particular convoy. Maybe the guys at Cochin. Maybe it was part of this task force, although I don't know why the AMs didn't interdict with their guns. Loading up some supplies for Colombo. Meanwhile, with just a few days left on the ceasefire, We have about 220 Japanese fighters at Bangkok, so he's definitely building up his fighter force in southern Thailand with 97 bombers and 85 auxiliaries. No indication of any aircraft at Chiang Mai at the time. Meanwhile, Rangoon, our forward airbase, has just shy of 200 fighter aircraft. 184 of them are ready. 25 of them P-40 Warhawks, 24 of them are P-38 Lightnings. 3 of the Lightnings are still repairing. It looks like we'll have all 3 back tomorrow, though, so we'll be back to a fully operational squadron for the P-38s in 1 day. Unfortunately, with as far away as Bangkok is, we can't really sweep or do a whole lot of damage over it. We could try and do some like nuisance raids or some maybe heavy bomber attacks at night and hope maybe we'd destroy some aircraft on the field. I'm guessing, I mean, if he really has almost 400 aircraft at Bangkok and it's only a level 4 airfield, he's got to be overstacked on that field considerably. So he's going to suffer a lot of ops penalties if he tries to operate out of there. He could reach as far north as Rangoon with Zeros and Oscars flying with, you know, extended range. Actually, not even. The Zero can fit there within its normal range. But I don't imagine he's going to want to sit in an airbase where he's overstacked that badly, because we could put B-17s at Mandalay and just have the range to hit him. I don't think we'd want to fly out of Rangoon. We're already, if we take a look here, we're already at, well, we do have some room in the airfield, I guess, in terms of stacking. 96 out of 250. We could add some aircraft there. Still, I'm not sure it's a wise idea for us to put bombers that far forward. Hey, Coffee Filter, good to see you. I am tempted, though. These Catalinas are doing supply to Great Nicobar, which we've tried to push some forces forward here to Great Nicobar. We've got an RAF group wing here. We can fly some patrol planes out of here, out of the seaplane base there, basically, and then sweep south to see where the enemy fleets are. We know that they have probably the main carrier force at Singapore. We've also spotted tankers and other ships there. We know that they've got over 200 ships in port at Singapore. So one would assume that the main fleet is there, potentially with the intent of sailing north and launching a raid into the Indian Ocean or the Bay of Bengal, maybe sailing south and west through the Strait near Oosthaven, and then snipping at the heels of the supply line between India and Australia and driving north toward Colombo. That's also possible. So having float planes at Great Nicobar would be helpful, and so that's kind of, we've set things up to be able to do that. But I am tempted to maybe throw a single nighttime raid up against Bangkok and just see how things play out. And I don't have any bombers at Mandalay at the moment to do that. What size airfield is Mandalay again? It's a level 4 working on 5, so we're going to get penalties for our payloads, I think, on any B-17s. Their normal radius is 15. I don't even know if they can fly. I'd have to look at the rules again, but I think they operate as if they're on extended range, but only can go out to normal range if they're on an airfield that's too small. So the E's may not be able to do that. Now, the D's could hit their 17 normal radius. It's a range of 16 from Mandalay. So we could fly out of Mandalay with a handful of B-17s. We've upgraded most of our 17s to... actually, we haven't. I thought we had, but it looks like we still have a considerable number of Ds. The Ds lack the ball turret at the bottom, and they've got that like weird underside mount, but it's not a ball turret. Like, this is a really early version of the B-17. Really wasn't used in Europe at all. I think the E and then the F were the primary initial 17s used there. F much more prominently, but the D, I believe the E was used there. I don't think the D was used at all there. But we do have 12, 19. So we could hit Bangkok with 19 B-17s at night if we spend a turn to reposition these guys. Maybe help limit the buildup there. Might not be a bad idea. What else do we have going on? We have some ships unloading at Rangoon still. We got some troops coming off, some amphibious transports. So the RAF 221 group unloading. The 7th Heavy Anti-Aircraft unloading. So we're up to 440 garrison points here. One of those British brigades is newly arrived. The 254th Armored Brigade has pulled in there and is resting to try and get its morale up. Punjab Battalion SSVF Brigade is... They've managed to get their squads out of disabled status. I don't think we have any reinforcements for Malayan squads, which is unfortunate. So they're going to stay under strength, but they're there. We probably need to change them from Singapore to Rangoon, though, because they're no longer trying to go for Singapore. The aircraft, quite a bit of Hurricanes at this base. Some of the American stuff, like the 40s, are going to have to start pulling out within the next couple of weeks. So we've got 25 P-40s there. 22 or another 25 P-40s here. P-39s as well. So 75 American aircraft are going to have to withdraw. That's just less than half of our total fighter force at Rangoon in the next couple of weeks. But maybe we can get them shot down on heavy air-to-air combat so it doesn't hurt too bad. Maybe we can make them take some enemy with us. Meanwhile, our Chinese troops are starting to enter the region as well. We're trying to get them down to Pegu, where they'll be flooded with enough supply to really, or maybe even to Rangoon, where they'll get enough supply to be able to rapidly upgrade those guys. Explain this game to you. It is a turn-based World War II game. Each turn represents 1 day. I am playing online versus another player named Lodrick. It is a game that includes every single ship that existed in the Pacific Theater of Operations in World War II. It includes every single ground unit that was involved, down to, in some cases, the battalion level. It includes every single aircraft squadron or group, ranging from sizes as small as 2 to 4 patrol planes to some groups up around 50 aircraft. All modeled in a turn base that equals 1 day per 1 turn. And when you do resolve combat, it uses a WIGO system. So basically, when my orders are issued, I hit end turn. I send the turn back to the Japanese player who has already entered their turn. So basically the way it works is Japan enters their turn, sends us to the Allied player enters their turn. Allied player sends it back to Japan. Japan opens the file, and then the replay runs. It generates based on the orders from both sides and resolves them kind of simultaneously over the course of 1 day. So you have a PM or AM phase where it's nighttime, which is mostly submarine stuff. Goes into air operation phases during the morning. Then it has an air operation phase at night. Meanwhile, during those phases, you can also have naval combat occur or air attacks on shipping and other things like that. And then it goes to land combat and wraps up. Panzer 8018, thank you for the follow, or actually, sorry, thank you for the Prime sub. Appreciate the support. It looks like my alerts are off. They are now back on. So yeah, this game is bonkers detailed. Certainly not a game for everybody, but the Gary Grigsby games, which this is one of the earlier, well, not earlier ones, but one of them, have always been pretty ridiculous in terms of detail. And one of the things that I believe, I was watching an interview with Joel Billings, who's one of the founders of 2x3 who make these games. He's the CEO, and he also was, I believe he was the co-founder of SSI games way back when. So like those, some of the classic games made by SSI. I believe, did they make Panzer Corps or Panzer General back in the day? I think they might have. But anyway, he was talking about how like these games were largely inspired by some board games that are basically, essentially you've got board games where you, like back in the day, there were popular board games that would take up like the entire garage of your house. Like you'd literally have a board game, you'd set it up, it would take the entire garage. There's like a skit of a spiff of one of the more egregious ones of these, like Africa Corps or something like that, in a Big Bang episode. But Yeah, so these games are basically computerized version of that concept. They wanted to say, like, listen, as huge as these games are, they're kind of unplayable in a real world setting, but why wouldn't you use the computer to do all the things that, like, you can't do in real life? And so that's where these largely came. All right, so trying to think of what else we need to look at. This is a pretty quiet turn. Manila supplies are in rough shape. The troops at Clark Field are starting to get real lean, starting to lose some weight. 41st and 11th and 51st Filipino Army Infantry Divisions are still in supply. 21st and 45th and 57th Infantry Regimental Combat Teams are still in supply. And everybody else is like, you guys, what the fuck? Share some food. We're starving. But we're still okay on supplies for probably another week, I would guess, at Clark Field against at least one enemy attack before things get real dark and those troops get forced to surrender. But hey, maybe the troops will make it into Bay. PTO 2 is a lot of fun, Iron Press Priest, but it's nowhere near this level of detail. All right. Meanwhile, at Batavia, they didn't really bombard us again, so they're just kind of letting us dig trenches here. We're up to level 4 forts. We're almost a fifth of the way to level 5. I still don't think we're going to get there, but they've been pretty passive so far on that front. Did we ever see where those battleships were we detected, like, at Singapore last turn? Did they go into Singapore's harbor? I guess, maybe? So it doesn't seem like they're going to come south and bombard Batavia, which is good for us. Oh, there's an AKE at Surabaya. So that could be a resupply ship that maybe they would want to set up shuttle bombardments to Batavia. That might happen. Some PT boats moving to Padang, probably going to do a small amphibious landing somewhere in there. They haven't moved toward Coast Coast Islands. I thought when we saw some of those destroyers swing through here last turn that they were going to drop some troops here, but it doesn't look like they have. Now, they might have launched some amphibious mines or some offensive mines there. The coloring on that minefield icon was a little bit different, which makes me think maybe there were some offensive mines laid, but maybe not. All right, these guys are pulling back. They still had a little bit of supply on them, but we did withdraw them. Probably have enough supply in Coast Coast for a while. 4,500. We only need 190. Perth is still unloading supply. The Americal division here has arrived. I have arrived. So the first American division has arrived in Australia. Although it would be nice if we could change the name of the unit, because they got the nickname Americal from being deployed to New Caledonia, Cal being in the name. And they're not going to New Caledonia anytime soon because that's in Japanese hands. 154 fuel at Perth. Got a little bit of fuel and some fleet oilers heading out. We got the Hermes also heading out to Cape Town. All right. So we have largely evacuated Perth, by the way. There's still a battleship and some cruisers and destroyers there, but most of the merchant shipping is out. And we're getting real close on our battleship or battle cruiser, the Repulse. We are 4 days away from her being fully repaired. Right now, she's stood down to pierside repair. It says 4 days. She's set to critical priority. She has 1 engine damage, 6 system damage. If we really needed to pull her out and send her to sea now, we could certainly do so. She is still down 1 torpedo mount damaged, but I imagine that'll be fixed in the next 4 days. And if not, I don't think we're going to be using torpedoes on our battle cruisers very often. Meanwhile, the Prince of Wales is still sitting on cruise speed 6, which is 1 hex per phase, which is not... It's not efficient yet for us to try and send her somewhere else for repair. So she at current rate is 244 days away from repair in South Africa. I didn't see a lot of flight activity this turn, at least in terms of combat. Japan, our intel's saying they lost nothing. Our intel's also saying that we lost nothing this turn. I can't remember the last time neither side lost any aircraft. We flew 6,700 safe sorties without a lost aircraft. That's pretty impressive. Japan, their sortie count seems to be dropping a little bit. They're down to 3,700. The 6,700 is important so that we can properly train and equip our crews. I mentioned the 75 American fighters who are going to be leaving Rangoon soon. One mitigation tactic we have set up is by getting the Flying Tigers into India and out of China and flying modern P-40Es. So we've equipped the 2 other AVG squadrons. We've got the one flying the P-38s, but then we also have 2 that have been set up to fly P-40Es. These squadrons are in theater until July 4th, and they're currently in the process of upgrading from their H-81Bs to P-40Es. You can see they've got 12 aircraft ready here in AVG section number 2, and they've got 8 aircraft ready in AVG section number 3. If we look at the planes, we can see the maintenance level. It looks like we're getting about half of those maintenance planes tomorrow in AVG 3. AVG 2 looks like it's going to be getting not quite half of what's still down, maybe a third of what's still down tomorrow, and then the rest within 2 days. So we should have 2 more full squadrons here in the next 2 days. Both of those groups will be fully equipped in 2 days. And then we'll have another 54 fighters, which we can send south from Chittagong down to Rangoon, and they can then replace at least 2 of the 3 American squadrons they have to withdraw in the next few weeks. It'd be even better if he starts the attack on like the 25th or 26th when the sort of quote-unquote ceasefire rolls off, because then we'd still have the 75 aircraft which had to leave. We'd also have the 54 aircraft which are currently, stepping up, and that would give us, between those, that would give us an additional 240 aircraft or fighters, roughly, to go up against what we've identified here so far as 220. So we'd actually have a slight advantage in terms of numericals. Now, his aircraft are generally better than ours, but if he's flying on offensive operations, he's got to fly. He's kind of flying at a disadvantage versus a defender. Plus, we do have the P-38s, which are better than anything he has, and we can bounce and drop down on them. The Hurricanes that we have quite a few of also are more than a match for the Zeros as well. No real intel about what's happening in China. We're really not sure. We know he's pulled back from Sian, where he had a large armored formation. We have no real intelligence on where that armored formation is going to. I'm a little worried they're going to try and swing south and launch a blitzkrieg along this main rail line and then major roads up into our capital at Chongqing. But so far, no indication of where they're at. The problem is once they show up, we probably won't have a lot of time to do anything about it. And he's got interior lines that he can rail troops directly east-west. And south along, so it could be a push toward Quilin, though. We are working on building the forts up there. They're at level 3. They're almost to level 4, so they should be to level 4 before any battles are fought there. The one thing I don't think he'd do is advance the armor from Wu Chao over poor roads. That would probably be unwise. I'm not evacuating Perth, Army Boy. I'm just getting our cargo ships out of port there and moving them where they can start doing some shuttle convoy work. Okay. Additional unloading of USN Base Force Combat Engineer Regiment and Field Artillery Unit here at Melbourne. So the 255 USN Base Force will give us some aviation support in Australia, as well as some radars and anti-aircraft guns of high quality. Also naval support to help make that port operate more effectively. The 102nd Combat Engineer Regiment would be useful in any sort of offensive landing, or they'll be useful in building up forts and playing on the defensive. And then the 205th Field Artillery Battalion has some nice 105mm howitzers, which might be nicer in, we've also got some 155s in the 198th. Those would be pretty damn useful in Burma, but we do have some coming the long way through the Panama Canal to get there. Suva's supply situation is better now. It's up to 53,000. At one point it was deteriorating. We've been doing a little bit of recon on Savi to see if it's worth trying to land there. Maybe retake that base. Our cruisers are coming back from that engagement off Canton Island. You can see here the Achilles did suffer a fair bit of systems damage, so she'll need to be repaired. The Clark suffered a fair bit of damage as well. That destroyer took some hits. So she's got 13 flood damage. We'll probably have to pull her back to New Zealand or Australia to get into a shipyard to repair that damage. And the other ships suffered minimal damage. I would like to land on Canton and Savi. I think these are my two initial, like, let's go and take these bases back so we kind of push the Japanese out of this sort of position where they're really astride our supply lines. They're too far forward to base any, like, major bomber forces, but they could certainly put float planes on either of those islands and have a very good picture of our logistical apparatus. So I do want to push back there. Our battleships, where are they at? Oh yeah, here they are. Battleships on the way back to Pearl. That's a lot of victory points at risk there. But feel pretty confident, given we spotted his carriers out towards Singapore, that there's no real risk. And I think that's about it for this turn. I think we might have had a battleship come back online. 11 days for the Arizona. That's at San Francisco. 61 days for the West Virginia at Amir Island Shipyard. Los Angeles has the, I think it's ready, Battleship Maryland. San Diego has the Pennsylvania, which is still about 4 months away from repair. That's the situation there. Ship availability. A couple of cargo ships and destroyer tenders and whatnot coming online in a few days. We've got the Illustrious, another British carrier, coming online in 6 days. Oh, if we go back to Colombo, how are our carriers and refit doing? 1 more day. Oh, wait, no, that's the heavy cruisers. So the carriers must be back in service. Yep, Yorktown and Enterprise have completed their upgrades, where they upgraded their 0.5-inch anti-aircraft guns and replaced them with 20mm Oerlikon AA guns. They also got radar. I don't believe that was on the ships yet. So pretty big upgrades for both the Enterprise and the Yorktown to assist them. Saratoga and Lexington still need their upgrades to remove their 8-inch guns and give them better anti-aircraft equipment to replace these half-inch Browning M2s. But that'll have to wait, because I believe that's like a 20-day refit, and I can't afford to leave ships on the front lines. If he's going to go with a Bay of Bengal raid, he could sink him in the shipyard. So we don't want to do that yet. But we do have 6 carriers at Colombo, and then in another week we'll have a 7th. Well, a little more than a week sailing time. But yeah. Not sure we have a whole lot else to show this turn. Relatively quiet turn. Let's take a look at the intel first. SIGINT. The 56th Infantry Division is located at Port Moresby. That's good to know that he has like a full division at Moresby. Can't remember if we saw that in the fight there or not. Okay. We also have an engineer regiment located on a Aden cargo class AK moving to truck. Aden cargo class? Wouldn't that be an allied cargo class? Yeah, not a lot else interesting. Anything else you guys want to see tonight? I know it's going to be a short stream, but with that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up here. Relatively quiet turn. Like I said, we've probably got about 3 or 4 more days of quiet before I assume hell will begin to hit the fan, or shit will begin to hit the fan shortly. So enjoy the calm and the repositioning and the sort of strategy behind things, because it's hopefully, anyway, about to get a lot more hectic and maybe entertaining as well from your perspective and the audience. With that being said, that's going to do it for today's episode. I hope you guys did enjoy yet another episode of War in the Pacific Admirals Edition, my Let's Play and Play by Email game versus Lodric. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.